So I was actually quite stunned. I have these 3 photos that I want to use to create a panorama with. So the goal is simply to stitch them together and make the photo look as best as possible. However, when I tried to use Photoshop to put these images together, I did have some issues with the lighting, and you can kind of see where one image ends and the overlap kind of starts, which is terrible. I did play around with the options, of course, but I would need to fix that manually, which is annoying. So I thought, why not try Luminar Neo? We take our 3 images and simply drag and drop them into the panorama stitching box on the side right here. I'm gonna hit start and let Luminar think for a second. After a couple of seconds, Luminar has put the images together, but what I really love about this is now you can change the perspective that you want the images to take on. So you can just take it and drag it around to change basically how big the foreground is in comparison to the background, which I think is amazing. Find the sort of perspective that you like the most, you know, that goes with whatever you had envisioned, and then hit the continue button. Now obviously I don't want to crop the mountains off on the top here, so I'm just going to increase our canvas a little bit to the top here, as well as also to the bottom, maybe something like that. We can also go a little bit over the sides in terms of like that, and maybe like so. Once we're happy, we're going to hit crop. Now the first thing you notice in comparison to Photoshop is that there is no weird brightness overlap, right? So the images really go neatless and seamless from one to the other, which is perfect. But our image doesn't really fit the frame, so let's switch over to the edit module and make that happen. We're gonna start by opening up a develop module and go down to optics. Now here we're gonna take the lens distortion slider and simply move it towards the right until the edges of our photo, well, get to the edges of the actual frame. Now let's go down to the transform section and use the vertical slider to tilt the image and therefore center it just a little bit again, maybe something like that. Now once we have that, we're going to close down our develop module and open another one, go down to optics and do the same thing again to drag our photo along the sides. Now simply play with the lens distortion slider in combination with the vertical slider until you get rid of all the white space that you don't want in your photo. And there we go, so this setting works for me for this photo. That looks awesome because it fits in our frame, but we can definitely do more to make that photo pop. We're gonna start super simply by opening up our shadows to get some light into the scene. Once we have that, I'm gonna close the module down, create another one and simply do it again. Yes, I know it's called being crazy, being mad. We can then bring down our highlights a little bit, maybe something like this. And then we go to our blacks and bring them down a little bit as well. Maybe something like that. And while we're here, let's bump up the whites, the total whites, a little bit just to keep the popping effect. It looks good. Now I do know that it looks weird because we have too much blue in the foreground, but we can easily fix that. Let's close the develop module down and head to color, head down to HSL, and let's just take out a little bit of that blue saturation from our foreground. As much as we feel comfortable with, maybe something like that. Of course, that also takes it out of the sky and we don't want that. So let's simply use a linear gradient to pull that over our foreground just like that. Because now we don't affect the sky, which is nice. Next, before I continue with the colors, let's add a little bit of contrast in here. Simply the smart contrast and pull it towards the right to add that sweet, sweet contrast. Looks good. There is still a bit of blue in there, so let's go back to color. Make sure we remove a little bit of the color cast, which will take the blue out of the photo as well. And let's take a second to work on those greens. So what we want to do is we want to go to our hues, and our greens right now are more in the cyan range. So I'm just going to take that and pull it all the way to the left. That's going to create a bit more, well, a bit more green bluish greens. And that is what I want, especially for that foreground right here. But we do need them to pop a bit more, so let's head to saturation and bring that saturation up as well. And as you can see in the image, if I go crazy, so will the colors. But we don't, we're gonna keep it real. Let's go to something like maybe here is not too bad. Next, to make the image pop, and because I'm a lazy person, let's use the AI enhance filter thingy and just bump that up a little bit. That's just gonna bring the photo to life a little bit. And lastly, let's head down to the vignette and let's add a nice big fat whooping vignette around the whole thing. Give it a nice big feather by opening the advanced settings, maybe something like that. And very important, simply use the inner light to make that center pop a little bit. Of course, I'm doing this quick. You can do this faster, slower for your photos, whatever you prefer. I like something like that. And another awesome thing, you see that white outline around the mountain range, right? And I mean, white's not bad, but we could add a touch of color. For that, we're going to use the twilight enhancer because why not? Because we can. So I'm going to choose the preset Mauve, and just bring that up a little bit. I just want to see the effect for now. Now, looking at the white space in the background here, my only goal is to make sure there is a touch of that purple in there. Not more, Just a touch of that purple. That's all I want. I just don't want it completely white. Just want it a little bit purple and the whole thing darkened down a little bit. That's good. If that darkens down things too much, simply add another vignette, just add a tiny little bit and go to inner light, pump it back up if that's what you want to do. And in my case, also let's maybe take out a little bit of that blue saturation from the sky. Not too much, just a little bit like that. And let's bring that into our sky so we don't affect the foreground anymore, and we are done with that. Now you might be wondering, but Phil, what about these very ugly dust spots that you obviously have in your photo? That's very true. So let's head to erase and click on remove dust spots. There we go. Now we do not have dust spots anymore, which is kind of nice. Well, actually there's a tiny one here. There we go. And there we go. We went from that to this. Now, of course, that was just very quick and you can do whatever you need in your photos, but just check out how quickly we went from our 3 base photos that we randomly stitched together, which was very easy to do, into an actual super cool landscape photo. Now, as usual, if you do like what you see and you want to get Luminar Neo for yourself, you can use the code LET'SIMAGE at checkout to save, I think, 10% on your purchase using the link in the description. Other than that, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to edit some more panoramas because it's just that easy. Have a good one.